Hi guys, welcome to the Sports Bets Daily Show. I'm your host Alex, and with me, Snize Master and James from Tennis Pilot, the two boys who will be with us all season long, not only this year but also next year. So I hope that you will be familiar with us in few time because we will be here week in and week out, and more for the Grand Slams. I think that we'll have 2 free shows per week for the Grand Slams. We will cover every single round. We have a huge surprise. As you know, the football season is here. The Premier League Panthers' first show is on Thursday with Natalie, Flash, and Martin. And we have a huge surprise for that day. And from now on, for all the season, not only the new design is ready, which looks absolutely amazing, brilliant, how I like to say, but yeah, stay tuned because you will simply love it. Anyway, tennis hour with the James and Snides here. Rogers Cup, WTA Toronto and ATP Montreal. Rogers Cup, both of them. But here we are we are starting with the women's part because, like I mentioned last week, it's nice to start with the women's part because um, they are our best. I love me personally. I love
Ladies
watching.
first, right? Always ladies
Yeah,
first.
I love personally. I love watching the ladies more than the men. I don't know. Sometimes I think that the ATP tour is a little bit boring with Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal winning everything. So
Yeah.
you have to expect the unexpected from the women's side. Someone was asking me, can Simona Halep win the U.S. Open? I said it's difficult because the women's part is so unpredictable, and this is why we love it. So we talk about WTA Toronto, about some outright bets here. Simona Halep at 6.5, Serena Williams 7.5, Ashley Barty 8.5, Karolina Pliskova at 10, Naomi Osaka 10, Svitolina 17, Sloane Stevens at 17. Huge surprise. Angelique Kerber out of the tournament. Bam, bam. I don't know how she managed to do that after winning the first set 6-0 against Kasatkina. Playing some brilliant tennis also in the third set. Absolutely amazing shots from Kerber, but somehow she managed to lose. Tell me why, boys. Tell me why, James.
Well, I mean, I think she just wasn't consistent enough on the day. I call it the bagel curse. Every time you win the first set 6-love or even 6-1, you're guaranteed to lose the match. I mean, obviously you're not, but it always feels like players when they guaranteed. It always feels like when players do that, I suppose, if the other player can push back with some decent form in the next sets, it seems to offset the sort of balance a little bit. It seems to get in their head almost that they should have won by now, or they can't be losing from 6-love. It's almost embarrassing. But yeah, big surprise, not expected.
I think that is worse than losing 6-0, 6-0 to win the first set 6-0 and after that to lose the match. I think that this is the worst thing that it can happen to you as a player. Maybe after 6-0 in the first set, I don't know, something is happening in their mind and they're saying, this match is too easy. So I will relax a little bit. And here I am, Kasatkina, boom, and I'm out.
Yeah, something
tell
like
me
that.
why, James.
Yeah.
Tell me why it's nice. Tell me why Kerber is out of the tournament so early.
I mean, she's been inconsistent all year. Hasn't really been able to live up of the heights of the past. So it's not really a huge surprise to see her go out in tournaments lately. She's also been injured. She was injured coming into Wimbledon. She was fighting to get fit there with an ankle injury, so she could barely move at Wimbledon. Impressed she even showed up. So she hasn't been able to get as much match practice in and play as many tournaments as she probably would have liked up until now. So there's that too. But certainly after you win the first set 6-love against another player that has been underperforming this year in Kasatkina, you'd have to consider an epic choke. And I don't know. Sometimes the WTA tour is weird like that. You have these things happen. Terrible.
And I will tell you, I'm very happy with the Kontaveit win. I know that you played the other way around, Snize, but I'm really happy with her winning because I don't stand the other player. Wang lost against Kuznetsova. I mean, how old is Kuznetsova? 55, 60, 65? I don't know. She's still playing. I don't know. You to lose against Kuznetsova right now. Okay, I'm joking with 65, but she's 34, a little bit younger than Serena Williams. I think that a few months or something like that. Anyway, Kuznetsova, Ostapenko, huge surprise in my opinion against Caroline Garcia. Huge underdog Ostapenko there and managed two straight a victory in straight sets 6-3 6-3 6-3. Absolutely incredible for number 82 WTA who won a major 2 years ago. Imagine where she arrived, 82 in the world. That is shocking for some players. We have some live matches going on right now. Collins versus Shinyakova. They are in the third set, in the decider. Azarenka easily won against Camila Giorgi. The first one, 6-2. Zheng is struggling against Maria, losing 2-5 in the first set. But let's talk about some outright bets here. Simona Halep declared that she didn't practice for the last 2 weeks. She was on vacation. She didn't touch the racket. She didn't touch any ball, or maybe she did, some human balls. But that is not what we are interested in right now. 6.5, I think that it's a little bit bad. I wouldn't touch that market. But it's very strange to see also Serena Williams, second favorite at 7.5. I don't know. It feels to me like the bookies are going with Serena Williams. I think that if Serena Williams magically was winning Wimbledon for 2 years right now, for 2 years from today and on, she would be the main favorite in every tournament that she was performing. And now she is second because Simona Halep won the last Grand Slam Wimbledon in London. So what do you say about these prices? And if you want to play something from the outright bets, I wouldn't touch this market, but maybe you will convince me to do it. James?
So this is quite a stacked field in my eyes. I think someone like Halep probably could do with a couple of weeks of relaxing. It might make a play better. Maybe some balls as well. But the thing is, from my perspective, I'm not really sure who I would pick from the top of the field. It seems like a fairly heavy field. As you say, Serena's always difficult because if she plays her best, then it's not going to give anyone else much of a chance. But it hasn't really looked like she's in that mood recently. Barty seems to have been very consistent this year, very solid, but at the same time, you would probably expect that if we're going to be taking outrights here, it would probably be against the top of the field. It is tricky, though, because each of them in their respective quarters, I would expect them to win them. So it's going to require a bit of imagination. I think probably the most obvious person, in my opinion, although this might be a bit divisive, would be Andreescu, because I think someone like that, someone playing that well before their injury, I don't think they're likely to come back out and be able to play the very best straight away. But I don't think it's impossible. And I think if she starts playing well at the beginning of the week, which I would expect, then you're very likely to have got a nice price at the start of the week. She's been on camera talking about how good she feels now, being back, how she's ready to play. Of course, that's for camera, but maybe it means something. If she does play near to her best, I think she has every chance of going deep, of pushing the top players, as she has already. So that would be a chance. She's 40-1 currently with Betfred. Again, of course, the problem with doing these outright previews when it's in play is that we don't have live prices, so we can't tell you what price that'll be when it comes back live. But I would guess that she's going to go well this week if she's fit, which I would guess she is from what I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely interesting with Andreescu there. I was reading a declaration from her pre-tournament. She was very thrilled to come back on tour and play at the competitive level after the injury. And now, obviously, she will play a fellow Canadian there with the social media girl there coming in action. I think that she will pass. She will pass her, but after that, I think that she will struggle. If you ask me, that's a good price, but on that price, you have also Sakari at 40 to 1 at 40.0. You have also Arina Sabalenka at the same price. So Donna Vekic at 51. So many great numbers on other players that are in shape, that are performing week in and week out, and have it on their blood right now. Andreescu,
They're
I'm
a
sure she will
lot
have
more
a.
exposed. That would be my big problem with that. All of the players you mentioned there, I wouldn't have said that they were playing well enough recently to be winning this event. Of course, they might play well, and this is always you trade off information for, I suppose, variance. So with Andriska, I don't think that she's likely to do that, but in the sense that I think most of the time she just won't be in enough match fitness. But all the players you mentioned, I think they're quite exposed this year. They've kind of shown the level they're playing at, and it would surprise me if they managed to play well enough. I mean, of course, they could win. This is a numbers game, but it would surprise me if they played well enough to make that seem good value for me. But yeah, I take your point. It's very hard because we're kind of guessing about how fit she's going to be.
Exactly. We don't know how fit Halep will be after 2 weeks and a half of a break after Wimbledon. We don't know how fit she will be. Of course, I will be very happy if she will retain her title here at the Rogers Cup. But I will also be happy if Andreescu will win, because she is also Romanian with Romanian blood. She was born and raised in Romania from Romanian parents, and after that she moved to Canada, and now she's playing for Canada. It was a discussion in the past, in this year, if she will make it or she will accept if the Romanian Federation will try to call her for the Fed Cup. But I don't think that will happen. Anyway, the Fed Cup will not be what it originally was. Also, Simona Halep said that she will not play on the Fed Cup anymore because the format changed and she doesn't like the format. So that's a problem for many players, like the Davis Cup change on the men's tour. So I don't like that either. But the discussion is here, Snize, if it's good to take such a number, 41, 40 to 1, or to go with the favorites here, Halep 6.5, Williams 7.5, Ashley Barty 8.5. I don't know, Ashley Barty, maybe a take here.
Yeah, so we come into here, WTA Toronto, WTA Premier 5 tournament, playing at medium fast hard courts. They alternate these events, so they play 1 year in Montreal and then play 1 year in Toronto. So the women are in Toronto this year, the men are in Montreal. Simona Halep will try to defend her crown from last year, but I don't think the newly crowned Wimbledon champion will come here with much of a shot. Like Alex said there, she hasn't played at all. She's been taking time off. I think she's in a bit of a Wimbledon hangover. The entire country of Romania went into ecstasy when she won that Grand Slam title. So yeah, I think she's definitely worth opposing here. I would not lay back that price. Serena Williams, the problem I have with her is that obviously she still does have the level to beat every single WTA player on tour. That's how talented she is still. But she's only played 6 non-slam matches for the entire year. So when you want to back Serena Williams in any tournament, you'll have to keep that in mind. So with that little of matches outside of slams, I don't really want to back on her to go deep, especially not with her home slam of US Open coming up pretty soon. So that price seems a little bit low to me. Ashley Barty looked a bit vulnerable and also had some injury issues at Wimbledon when she lost to Alison Risk, surprisingly, there with shoulder arm injury, I think it was. So definitely looks a bit vulnerable too. So don't like any of the big favorites. What I did go ahead and do is on Sunday, obviously I don't know what the live press is right now, but I bet Belinda Bencic. I bet on her to win quarter one at 12, and I bet on her to win outright at 34. So this is the 2015 champion. She returns to Toronto, and she's had great memories from here. As an 18-year-old, she shocked the world. She reeled off six straight victories against very, very established names. She beat Eugenie Bouchard at the time where she was actually, focusing on tennis, Caroline Wozniacki, Sabine Lisicki, Anna Ivanovic, Serena Williams, and then Simona Halep to take the title. Huge breakthrough there for Bencic. She's also known as a giant killer. She's looked very strong this year. She won the title in Dubai. She's beaten 8 out of the 12 top 10 players she's faced this year. Incredible record there. So as I said before, with Barty looking a bit vulnerable post Wimbledon, Elina Svitolina low on confidence right now after a shocker of a choke in San Jose. Bencic is definitely the one to look out for in quarter one, and she has a great chance to take the title here. So that's who I went with.
Svitolina, she might play Svitolina later on before the quarterfinals. She might play Ashley Barty in the quarterfinals. She might play Victoria Azarenka. She might play Yastremska, great youngster there. So difficult, tough quarter for Belinda Bencic. But as you mentioned, if she will be in top shape, she can beat anyone because she is very, very skillful, and she has the power and the skills to beat anyone in a good day. Okay, going match by match a little bit. What you guys like the most? I was talking a little bit about Maria Sakkari and her chance at 41 to win this tournament. She struggled against Zheng. You had an in-play bet on your Twitter handle, Snize, for Zheng. There, I think that it was at 3 point something. And I was watching the match because I couldn't sleep. I normally go to sleep at 1, 2 o'clock at night. So, yeah, impressive from Zheng, but very, very poor from Sakkari. Sakkari right now is the favorite. No, he's not the favorite to win this match against Alison Riske. I think we don't have the odds yet. We have the odds yet? Wait to see.
Yeah, it's evens, basically, for both of them. Sakkari is the tiniest of favorites.
Yeah. Do you think that Sakkari is a good, at least in this one against Alison Riske?
Snize, do you want to take this one?
Who are you asking?
Snize.
Me? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes.
No, I actually went ahead and bet Alison Riske to win the first set here. I got it at 2.18, and I'll tell you why. So, Sakkari is coming from San Jose. That's West Coast, USA. She's now on a very, very short turnaround. She's going to fly over to Toronto, cross time zones. That's a 3-hour time difference there, and the body clock becomes a bit messed up there, as probably those who follow the NFL could testify to. It's very difficult when your body's used to, training and playing and eating at a certain time schedule, and then only 1 or 2 days later going out to compete in another time zone. So I think she'll struggle a bit with that. But also, Alison Riske has played 3 games here already, and she's looked very good. She obviously went very deep at Wimbledon. Grass is her best surface, but she's also great on hard courts. So it's a very, very tricky matchup there for Sakkari. So I do think she'll come out a bit sluggish here. I like Riske's game, and I think she can punish Sakkari if she doesn't start off great. So I want her to win the first set. Sakkari does have the skill to turn that match around, but she could very well go out in the first round. So I would stay off outrights for Sakkari in this tournament.
Another match starting in about 40 minutes or so. Ashley Barty versus Sofia Kenin. The trend on Twitter and many tipsters and people I know are betting Ashley Barty 2-0 straight victory at 1.7 right now. James, do you think that that is a great set of odds?
So, as I said before, I think Barty to me has been very consistent. As Snice pointed out, there's been some potential issues with injury from Wimbledon, it's difficult to judge. I mean, she's had, over a month now, just under a month, to recover. So she's probably fine. I'm not sure if she'd be risking too much if she's not fine. So you can always go ahead and back something like 2-love in the hopes that if she is going to retire, it will be early on. I don't think I'd back the win at that kind of price. Again, also something like a games handicap is always good if you think there's a slight risk of injury, because that will be void if the match is not completed. I would certainly expect, if she's fit, for her to win that quite comfortably. I would expect that to be quite a dominant performance.
Okay, let's talk about some matches from tomorrow. Bencic, Snize's favorite, is playing with Julia Jorges, and she's huge favorite at 1.36. Simona Halep is playing with Brady, who pulled off an upset, in my opinion, beating Kiki Mladenovic in the first round. Suarez Navarro against Kontaveit. Suarez Navarro with a beautiful win against Venus Williams in the first round. And also Serena Williams against Elise Mertens. Elise Mertens at 3.0 right now, the best odds on, no, 3.5 with Bet365, the best odds on the market. Do you guys have anything for these 4 or 5 matches? Also, we have Alexandrova versus Zhang. If you like something, please share with us. Snize.
Yeah, so I had a look at these matches. Not really that much that I liked. Like I said earlier, not really sure about Serena Williams in non-slam tournaments. Kind of a tricky proposition. They're trying to predict who's going to show up, if she's going to be, fully fit and feeling it. But one match I do like is Belinda Bencic again. She played incredibly well in her first round here. She dominated Anastasia Potapova 6-2, 6-1. Finished that in just over an hour. She won over 70% of both her first and her second serve points, created 10 break points, taking 5 of them. And I think she faced Sarah herself. So a very, very, very dominant performance there, and a testament to good form starting off her comeback here in Toronto. Julia Görges, she's only gone 18-14 this year, which is in stark contrast to her 45-23 record last year. She struggled a bit here, had a bit of a disappointing season. The German also withdrew from Lausanne a few weeks ago with a forearm injury, and she was made to work very hard to overcome clay quarter Polona Herzog in the first round here. So she did manage to play, but she had to fight really hard to win. Görges has a very powerful game, but Bencic is a master at redirecting pace and usually thrives against these power players, because she can absorb and redirect the ball in the other corner and move them around the court and make them get flustered and lose their game. So it's a good matchup for Bencic. She showed extremely good form in round 1. The line is only -3.5, so I went ahead and bet that at 1.72.
Yeah, you always prefer not to bet the straight sets and bet the Asian handicap, because as you said, even if she's losing one set, she might cover the Asian handicap in terms of games there. Very good take also there. What do you think about Elise Mertens, James? You had her. You played against her in San Jose. You played against you played with Christy Ann at 4.6, and it was a winning bet. Your first bet on the women's side there, and you went against Snize and you won that. So what do you think? Because Snize is saying that it's very hard to bet Serena Williams at this price and on a non-Grand Slam tournament. So can Elise Mertens cover the plus 4.5 Asian handicap at 1.83? Is she able to cope with Serena's powerful service, and that's about it, because she's not moving anyway too much. So only the powerful service. She has to be a great like Simona. She has every player who wants to beat Serena Williams right now should see that Wimbledon final. I think that they can learn a lot from that. Do you think at 4
Yeah.
plus 4.5 at 1.83, it's a good bet? It's a value bet?
Yeah, it's funny because the final, of course, I think Halep talked about how she tried to just be in the moment, not think too much about it, and have a specific strategy she was going to use. And of course, if more players did that against the top guys, I think we'd have a lot more upsets. And I think in general, they don't. They get stuck in their own head. They kind of forget that you don't have to play a certain way. But yeah, so I think the difficulty here is that someone like Serena Williams is, I mean, as Snize was saying, it's difficult to say how she's going to perform away from the slams. If she plays her best, of course, or even if she plays close to that, I doubt Mertens will have too much of a chance. From what I saw in San Jose, she didn't really look prepped for that match at all, which was obviously kind of what I was hoping. In the simple sense that she just didn't look comfortable on court, really. Arne did a very good job of spreading the court, pushing her wide, giving her a lot of things to think about in general. But to be honest, she kind of it was a bit of a. She certainly lost the match as much as Arne won it. In that she did, I can't remember the actual amount of double faults, but she did a lot of double faults. She was looking very lackluster. I remember the coach being quite unhappy with her when he was talking to her. So this is not really the kind of matchup I'd be getting involved in. Both of them fairly unpredictable coming into this. I think if we have everything go the right way, in that if Serena doesn't play that well and Mertens decides to play very well, then yeah, for sure she could cover that handicap. But obviously it's really difficult to predict whether or not that's going to happen. And given that handicaps tend to be lower variance options, they tend to be for situations where I think I've got quite a strong read on the match, I would probably be avoiding that, and I wouldn't be wanting to get involved with this kind of matchup. The one that I did have an interest in the women's was again Andreescu, and I think it's kind of a little bit of a gamble on fitness, as we talked about. But I think, I mean, I talked to Snize about this as well, that if she plays even remotely close to her sort of standard form, that I don't think Bouchard, who, again, as Snize mentioned, hasn't really been that focused on the tennis, or it doesn't look like she has, I don't think that she'll have many answers. So there's two things that I thought were interesting in that matchup. The first thing is either something like the handicap or just the straight win. If you wanted to put it into an accumulator, of course, that was part of my treble from today, which is Andreescu on the win. But you could also just take on the handicap. I think that's perfectly reasonable. But then the second thing, which you might want to consider, is 6-love to Andreescu. I mentioned this last week with Sunwoo Kwon against Steber, and he actually managed to win that second set 6-2. He won the first set 6-1. So we weren't that far off the 6-love at 34. And again, here, when they last met, these two, it was 6-love, I think, in the second set to Andreescu. And that's 17 currently with William Hill. I think the first set, 6-love, is also 17 with Bet365 if you wanted to back both. But the second set is where I'd be expecting it, especially given Andreescu's coming back, first competitive match since coming back. So she's probably going to take at least a set to get into it, I would imagine. And it's probably going to take at least a set for Bouchard to give up. So yeah, I like those two bets. I like taking a chance on the 6-love. I was quite surprised when I saw 17. I think it's really not a push to see her being very dominant in one of those two sets. And yeah, that and the handicap, I think, are my two plays.
I will take also something for tomorrow on the women's side, and I'm very, very confident in this play. I'm going against Simona Halep, but not entirely. I think that Jennifer Brady can cover the plus 5.5 on the Asian handicap at 1.71 right now with Pinnacle. I think that this is a brilliant play in my opinion, and I will also share it on Twitter as a one unit play for my followers. So I will do it right now because I think that the odds will drop till the start of the match at 5.5 plus 5.5 on the Asian handicap. So that means that she might lose 6-4, 6-3. I think that Simona Halep will she might win the match, but she will not be very dominant. She's trying to enter a little bit in good shape to prepare for US Open, not to force from the first match, because it's very important not to get injured in the first match after such a long break after the Wimbledon. And I think that Jennifer Brady, who played very good against Kiki Mladenovic, winning in straight sets, can cover that plus 5.5 on the Asian handicap. So that's it for the women's side from Toronto.
Snize has some more, I think.
Sorry, Snize. Sorry, Snize.
Yeah, sorry. I actually forgot because this match goes off tonight. I think it's like 1 a.m. British time. I do have a play on this Andreescu Bouchard game. It was a game I gave out on Saturday, actually. So we're very confident here. It is a max investment from my side. Like we talked about here, Andreescu does look fit. And with how young she is and how bright of a talent she is, she wouldn't be playing this event if she and her team weren't confident that she would be able to play at a good level. So what many people have kind of forgotten by now is how dominant Andreescu was when she was last playing. She's actually the woman that has the highest winning percentage on hard court in the entire tour, 85.2% over the last year on hard courts of the matches she has won. She's a complete player. She has everything. She has the mentality, she has the power, she has the wit, the change of pace, drop shot, the volleys, everything. Bouchard, on the other hand, she's a train wreck at the moment. She's lost 7 straight matches. Last one was a complete embarrassment versus Lauren Davis, 6-2, 6-1. It is looking like she's trying to work hard with a new coach to get back to tennis, but she's dropped out of the top 100 now. She doesn't look good at all. Like James said, the last meeting that was this year, it was a 6-2, 6-love drubbing by Andreescu. And as long as she doesn't feel her injury, she should be fit for fight and she should dominate this. So I bet the -4.5 at 1.98 has obviously come down a bit, but I still think there's value in this bet.
I think she's lost, is it 14 in a row on hard courts as the underdog going back to 2017. It's almost 2 years in a row she hasn't won a match as underdog on hard courts. Yeah, huge value there. Thank you for that, Snize. So going on the men's side here, ATP Montreal. Someone again was asking me today if Rafa Nadal can win this tournament. I say that at 2.8. It's a no play for me. I don't think that you can put your money on Rafa Nadal. Doesn't matter how good he is on the outright on this type of surface, because we're not talking about clay. Yes, if we were talking about clay, I will put my hand on fire that he would win at 2.8. Great value on that. Without Djokovic being here, without Federer being here, so he is alone. Rafa Nadal 2.8, and after that, huge drop. Alexander Zverev 10, Tsitsipas 13, Dominic Thiem 11, Kei Nishikori 13, and so on. James, what do you have for this outright market? I'm curious. Seems to you like a good thing, like a good player to back at 17 after coming back from that superb win last week against Medvedev in the final? Yeah, so I mean, if you look at Rafa's record in the hard court and Masters, it's actually quite different to his record in the general hard court event. And I think it's tricky. This event has traditionally been won by one of the big four pretty much every year, of course, like most of the Masters. So I wouldn't be betting on Nadal at 2-1, but I doubt that he's actually that much too short. I think he played well at Wimbledon, and I think Wimbledon played more like a hard court event. I think he's also, I would assume, going to come into this, given the adjustments that I saw at Wimbledon, he's going to come into this a little bit better prepared for the hard courts. So I'm not jumping to oppose him, but I think, as always, I'm happy to take some outsiders here. The main reason, actually, that I'm happy to take outsiders is the other half of the draw, because I think the top half with Rafa in it, it's kind of, I found it difficult at least to find that many players who I was comfortable betting on. There are certain players, for example, like Bautista Agut, who I think he was 40s at the start of the week. I very much considered him. I saw Sean Calvert actually tipped him outright as well. But my big problem with that is that he has got a very, very poor record against Rafa. And I think both psychologically and in terms of his game style, he would struggle in that kind of matchup. And same of most people that I could pick in that bottom half. Someone like Monfils, again, he looked quite good, to be honest, overall yesterday against Polanski, despite the fact that he managed to blow quite a considerable lead in the first set and made it harder for himself. Someone like Nishikori, again, just I would not be expecting him, the form I've seen of him, to be winning that. So I looked in the bottom half, and for me, that's because there are lots of very, very obviously opposable players in this bottom half. You have Zverev, Raonic, Kachanov, Cilic, Thiem, Isner, Coric. They're all players who are being priced up again on kind of old form, who don't really seem to be playing well or don't seem to play that well in general on the hard court Masters. So I would be taking some options down there. I think some of the options we have would be Stan the Man, Wawrinka, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Basilashvili, Struff, Edmund, Shapovalov. I think they're all potential options. Again, predominantly to try and take advantage of one of those top seeds who I think is looking vulnerable. I personally decided to go for Basilashvili. I also had Berrettini as well before we realized he was injured. Looks like he's done his leg in. But for me, Basil fits the bill in several ways. Probably the most important thing with Basil is actually, I remember last year when he won Hamburg, he then went on to win Beijing. And he was given he was given some help there. Del Potro in the final of Beijing was certainly not his best. But we saw Basil play very hot for a few weeks in the year. And that came off the back of probably not playing that particularly well leading up to that. And then he played himself into form in Hamburg. And that followed through to Beijing. So, of course, this is a very similar situation here. It's a bigger tournament. It's a Masters rather than a 500. But he has the firepower to do it. And he has the kind of draw where I could totally see him playing his way through. He has Alex Zverev is the main threat in his quarter, who, of course, he beat last week in Hamburg. Not last week, sorry. He beat recently in Hamburg. And then going from there, he would have Kachanov or Raonic, both of whom, again, I'm yet to see any decent form this year, really. I mean, they've had some decent matches, but they've not been able to string anything together. And then once you get past that, he would have, or the seeded player would be Thiem in the semi-final. And I mean, anyone who's seen Thiem playing on these faster hard courts, this is not a particularly fast hard court, but it's not a slow hard court. They'll know that Thiem is generally opposable in these situations. He did manage to win Indian Wells, which was a surprise. But of course, that's one of the highest bouncing, slowest hard court events there is. So it kind of makes some sense for him to do well there. He's not going to tend to replicate that form across most hard court events. So yeah, I think he's probably very nicely positioned if he can play well to have a deep run this week.
What do you guys say about Medvedev here? Obviously, he might face Kyrgios for the second time in 4 days. He lost the final in Washington last 2 days ago. And now he will play in the second round directly because he's number 8 in the world right now. So he will play against his number 8 seeded right now. So he will play against Kyrgios or Kyle Edmund here. I watched the final in Washington. He basically played very good the entire first set. He lost 1 point on his service before the tiebreak. He managed to win 2 mini breaks in the tiebreaks. He was leading 4-1, and something happened. Again, what the fuck happened? I don't know. I really don't understand this kind of players. I really don't understand how it's possible to play so good and, I don't know, a click to happen and boom, to lose everything. What is happening, Snize?
First of all, James broke down the draw very well there. Medvedev, I think he was the model of consistency last week. He had been struggling a bit with his form since Barcelona, really, but he really showed that he belongs in the top 10. Very difficult guy to break down. Fantastic defense, fantastic serve, great movement for a guy his size, good at the net. He played brilliantly all week, I think. The thing is, when you face Nick Kyrgios, and a Nick Kyrgios that cares about playing tennis, it's pretty tough to win, because he is, in my book, he has one of the absolute elite, one of the best serves in the world. I would say top 5, top 3 best serves in the world when he's on fire, and his serve was clicking. It was extremely difficult for Medvedev to get a foot in on return games. And I think Kyrgios is the type of player that can get into a player's head. He does, really unorthodox stuff on the court. He does the tweeners. He talks to himself a lot, talks to the ref, talks to the crowd. And Medvedev
he was
is a guy who I think can be affected by that. He was when they faced earlier this year in Rome. Kyrgios' antics really got to him in a 3-set loss there. So there could be some of that, but I think it was just mostly down to just really small margins, as always, with 2 big servers in a tiebreak, and Kyrgios just played extremely well. So I wouldn't take too much and put too much blame on Medvedev for that final loss, and put it more down to Kyrgios playing well. And Medvedev is the type of guy that can go deep.
I remember Jeff Sacklin from Tennis Abstract did an analysis of Kyrgios and showed that he's one of the few players who has actually consistently managed to play a higher level of tennis every single time, or not every single time, but a very high percentage of the time that he's needed to in these key moments. So it's like when he runs hot, as you say, Snize, it's just very, very hard to beat him. And I think that happened again when Medvedev went the double break up in the tiebreak. It was a really, really tricky situation from Kyrgios' perspective, but he just kept going. He kept playing his bizarre style of tennis, and played off.
And he can bring also your sneakers if you want. He brought to Tsitsipas his sneakers when he needed the most. Nick Kyrgios, a player whom our friend and a very good colleague from Odds Market, Adam Booth Lockyer on Twitter, hates. So don't talk nice about Nick Kyrgios, because Adam will get angry here on the live chat and he will start swearing, and I will put him on hold for 180 seconds. So go on, Snize, please.
So Medvedev was a guy that I looked at this week. Actually didn't go ahead and like anything enough to put in an outright bet for this tournament, I should go ahead and say. But Medvedev was one of the guys I looked at. He has the physical ability to be able to go deep in back-to-back events, and that's something that his probable second-round opponent, Nick Kyrgios, lacks, both mentally and physically. He's not in good of enough shape to actually contend deep into back-to-back tournaments, and who knows where he'll be mentally after winning the title. After winning his title in Acapulco, beating Nadal, he went off and just lost a couple of matches for an extended amount of time there. They had a pretty interesting journey, I should say. He somehow managed to get Daniil Medvedev and Stefanos Tsitsipas on the same plane, and those guys loathe each other. They absolutely despise each other to the gust. They hate each other. So very interesting flight trip there for Nick Kyrgios and the guys. So who knows, maybe some new friendships there. But Medvedev, I think, can go deep here, and probably be where I'll be looking to place an outright. Nadal is the favorite, and I think it'll be very tough to beat him if he comes here and plays his best tennis. But as you guys said, no value there. So Medvedev will stay away from me. I do have some bets on the other markets, though. I've gone particularly and played the quarters. So I'll break those.
I was just going to say, sorry.
Instead.
So the other point about the City Open, for me at least, is of course they're playing in very hot, unpleasant conditions there. So I think I completely agree with you. I think from watching how Medvedev played, I was very keen to get involved in some way, but I just find it really, really difficult. The idea of backing that week up with another deep week very physically hard. So yeah, I was with you on that one. Had the same feelings, but it's very hard to pull the trigger.
Yeah. So actually, ultimately stayed off there. So I went with the quarters instead. So if you look at quarter two, I went ahead and looked at. So the guys that spearhead quarter two are Stefanos Tsitsipas. We have Gael Monfils, Roberto Bautista Agut, and Kei Nishikori. And I went ahead and played Kei Nishikori to win that quarter on Sunday at 3.6. He's often knocked the Japanese for disappearing when faced up against the elite of the elite names, has a very poor record against the big three, usually gets absolutely obliterated and people make jokes about it. But he's often extremely consistent and often consistent enough to be the best of the rest, so to speak. It is a rarity for this smooth player to not reach a quarterfinal at events, and he's done that in all three slams this year. His hardcourt numbers are elite and well within the top 10 in most categories, and the 29-year-old for once, which is a big thing for me, he did not struggle against, on paper, inferior opposition at Wimbledon, because usually what you get with Nishikori, he gets faced up with some mug, somehow, some way gets dragged to 5 sets, couple matches in a row, and then he turns up gassed in the quarterfinals against whomever of the big three and gets absolutely washed. But he didn't do that, and played well versus Federer before losing in the quarterfinal. So the big threat in this quarter, I don't think Tsitsipas is able to back up his week in Washington. I think he still has a few holes he needs to cover in his game. He looked sloppy at sections of those matches, a lot of unforced errors, uncanny unforced errors that you don't really want to see there. So the big threat for me is Roberto Bautista Agut, but Kei has a 4-1 winning record on him head-to-head, and I think he is the best bet to win that quarter. Moving on there to quarter three, I have gone with the Stanimal. Bet him, obviously, on Sunday as well.
The Stanimal,
8 to win his quarter three. Yeah, Wawrinka has looked to rediscover his pre-knee injury form for a long time, and he's found it in bursts this season. He has had a few matches where he's looked brilliant, and then he's gone off the boil again. But I think he's playing very well right now, ending the quarter spearheaded by Zverev, with all of the legal issues right now surrounding him and clearly affecting him on and off the court and his play this season. We have Raonic, who's been woeful and has a woeful record here at Canada at home, I should mention as well. And Khachanov, who struggled with racket changes and forms and inconsistency all season. I think this quarter looks there for the taking for Wawrinka, so I went with him there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't like the fact that Adam left before I placed my bet against him. Right now, he's going with Nick Kyrgios, and I'm going with Kyle Edmund. As you guys mentioned, and I will back your words 100% here, Nick Kyrgios, after such a win, I think that he partied, he got drunk a little bit, he's not in the mood for a second deep run in a tournament. I don't know, somehow I think that he will manage to lose. Kyle Edmund is not a bad player either, so if he's at his best, I think that he can beat Nick Kyrgios, who I don't think that he will have. He will be in a great mood to participate and to have a deep run in this tournament. So going with Kyle Edmund against Adam there. Going on the matches, we have many matches going on. Also now, also later on, but also tomorrow. Let's start with if you have any in play. Schwartzman losing against Cecchinato right now. Schwartzman live at 1.7. Should we take him now? I think that this is a correct bet. No, he's dropping now at 1.6. Do you guys think that we should pull the trigger on Schwartzman here?
Yeah, I think you should go ahead and bet Schwartzman. He's obviously coming from the Los Cabos title in Mexico, a bit of a short turnaround here. But Cecchinato is absolutely woeful right now. I think he's lost something like 11 out of 10 out of 11 matches. He's in woeful form. He's lost a ton of matches, not even on his preferred surface of clay. He's been able to win matches recently. He hits the ball with a lot of topspin and is generally pretty weak on faster surfaces. So this is definitely not a tournament that should suit him. So if Schwartzman can get over potential jet lag and a bit of tiredness in his legs from the Los Cabos run, he should turn this around. Obviously, I haven't watched the match, but this is a bet I would make purely based on a fade of Cecchinato there.
I would want to be watching it because the only thing for me is there's a couple of difficult things to pin down. I think Snize is absolutely right that Cecchinato hasn't been great, but when he's playing well, he is very dangerous. So the only problem I would have is if Schwartzman is showing quite a lot of fatigue, he's showing that he's not actually feeling very good for this, and Cechinato's honing in, because of course, if you have a bad run for a long time, a lot of people know eventually you'll have a good match, and often that can make you feel good as you're playing it and you can play into it. So I just want to be watching it to make sure that it is just one of those things where Schwartzman's missed a few too many shots, but he looks fine. And yeah, I would definitely, he actually has, I think he's won all 16 of his matches priced under 1.5 on hard courts, Schwartzman. So yeah, I wouldn't be expecting this to break the trend generally.
He just lost the first set, Schwartzman 6-3 right now, but he went. He was better in the first serve percentage, 72 to 65% there. On the first serve points won, he was bad, only 57%. Second serve points won, again very bad, 55%. Break points saved, 83%. So Cecchinato had 6 break points, and the Schwartzman saved 5 of them, but without winning any break point there. So Cecchinato managed to impose his serve really easy against Schwartzman. Later on, we have Hurkacz versus Taylor Fritz, Bjorn Čorić versus Gojovcik. And also at night, European time, Basilashvili against Struff, Kyrgios versus Edmund, Nori versus Alexander Zverev, and tomorrow very interesting matches: Garin versus Isner, Richard Gasquet, who won his match against his fellow countryman Benoit Paire to upset Snize there. He was very upset after this. I'm sure he was, because he was with Benoit Paire to win that. Monfils against, I think that Monfils should really win this match in straight sets against a player. I don't know many things about this player. Ivashka, 125 double ATP there. Karen Khachanov versus Stan Wawrinka, and after that, obviously, we have Nadal versus Evans, Fonini, and Shapovalov playing Shapovalov versus Dominic Thiem. Interesting matches. James, do you have some favorite bets for this day and tomorrow?
Yeah, so I think, so going through the matches you just said there, I think probably the most obvious one to focus on for me, as again, doing the same kind of thing we did in both of the last 2 shows, opposing Alex Zverev in some way. Now, I'm less keen on it this week than I have been recently, because I have an instinct that he'll actually play okay here. I feel like these courts suit him quite well. But I still think Norrie's too long. You can get him at 3.75. And my feeling is these two met earlier in the year in Acapulco, and Norrie lost that, I think it was 7-6, 6-3. And it was a relatively competitive match. Norrie just couldn't really get that extra push, and Alex served pretty well. I remember because I backed Alex to love at the time, and I remember watching it thinking that he was doing just about enough to bring that through. And so there are 2 bets that I think make some sense in that one. The first one, the obvious one, being to just back Norrie at 3.75. I would not expect him to win, but I would expect that price to look too long. I don't think 3.75 is an accurate price. I would say closer to 3.25, maybe 3.4 would be my guess. And then the second bet, the one that I actually like more in a way, is the first set tiebreak at 5.2. And that's purely a price play in the sense that it's happened. If you look at what Zverev tends to do on the hard courts, especially the Masters, he tends to win his matches when he's a fairly short favorite, but he does regularly go to tie breaks. He regularly has fairly tight sets, and we can get 5 with Betfair or 5.2 with Unibet, which to me are, I think, pretty clearly too long. I think the next best price that I could see was closer to 4, which is, more like what I would say it should be. Because I can see that coming in many ways. I can see Norrie starting well, having had a couple of matches already, or having had a match already here. He might be more warmed up than Alex. I could also see Alex kind of just not playing that well, as he has most of the year, and just having quite a competitive set. And it's not the most tie-breaky of tournaments, but it's certainly enough for me to think 5 or 5.2 is too long. So I think for me, from that match, either the first set tiebreak or the win on Norrie makes some sense. If you wanted to go for a quote-unquote safer bet, or a shorter odds bet for an accumulator or something along those lines, I was surprised to see Fognini at 1.72 against Paul. Didn't really expect him. 1.71, sorry, 1.67 with Pinnacle. I think if you look at his record again on the hard courts, he tends to do a lot better than people expect. I would not generally be wanting to bet on him against the better players here, because I think he'll struggle motivation-wise at this part of the year. But I think it's a little bit insulting against a player like Paul, who has a lot of potential, but he hasn't really shown it consistently at all yet. I would definitely expect Fognini to come through that, and I was expecting something more like 1.5. So anything close to 1.66, 1.7 is quite an easy bet for me, I think.
Great value bets there from James. Snize, do you have something on the matches happening now, today, or tomorrow?
Yeah, I have a few bets for today, and I have also a few bets for tomorrow. So starting with the bets that go off today, should start, I'm not sure exactly when, but we have a matchup between Bjorna Coric and Petr Gojovcik here, and I've gone with the over 2.5 sets at 2.62 with Bet365. Bjorna Coric obviously hasn't played for a while now. He withdrew from Halle with a back injury, came back in Umag, lost in straight sets to Salvatore the Wall Caruso. Didn't look all too great there. So it's a bit tricky there to guess where Coric's fitness is at, but I would assume he is reasonably healthy and fit enough to compete here. Petr Gojovcik obviously hasn't had great results at all, but suddenly came to life last week in Washington, where he had a dream run to the semifinals as a qualifier, playing extremely well there. And he hits a very flat ball, can target the corner as well, and when he's confident on his game, he's definitely a challenge for most players. So I definitely think he can continue with this good form that he's in right now and take a set off Coric. I do think that Coric, if he is fit, should be too much for him. And Coric also has a tendency to play a lot of 3-set matches. I think it's 16 out of his 26 matches in the best of 3 format that have gone the distance. So Coric is usually an over machine. A lot of his matches do tend to go 3 sets. So I'm expecting a reasonably fit Coric to show up, but Gojovcik in good form should give him a stern challenge, and 3 sets there is a good price. Moving on to the night match, I'm going to go head-to-head with Alex. I heard you like Kyle Edmund in the night match there versus Nick Kyrgios. And I would have to disagree. And here's why. Obviously, now that Nick Kyrgios has won a title, people are expecting him to basically non-show and just lie down and die here. But I don't think necessarily that is the case. When Nick Kyrgios gets into a spell where he's interested in playing tennis, it can definitely keep up. He's, let's just get that out of the way, a much better player than Kyle Edmund is. And the problem I have with Kyle Edmund is that he tends to retract into a little shell when he plays better players. He can certainly lose confidence in himself. Has a good serve, has a great forehand, but when he lacks confidence, he can usually lose matches. He lost to Peter Gojovcik, obviously, in Washington. Kyrgios, even when not interested in playing tennis, obviously has a top 5 serve. That will be extremely difficult for Edmund to break. I think this will be a serve-dominated matchup. And so even if Kyrgios doesn't put in all too much of effort, I still think that this price is a bit insulting. He's clearly the better player, and this price is only based on really him not giving a shit in this match. If Kyrgios shows up at a reasonable level here, he's going to win this match. So purely off a price, I'm going to have to go with Kyrgios here. He should not be
I
an
disagree
underdog
with
to Kyle
both of you
Edmund.
guys. I think you're both wrong because I have no idea
No
what's going to
winner.
happen
The
here
referee
at
will
all.
win this match. Tell us.
Oh dear.
That will be the first, the both of them to get suspended. You did that, you did that. Nobody will go further,
Yeah.
But yeah, it is curious. So obviously proceed with extreme caution, as you never quite know what to get out of the man. But I definitely like the price here a bit too much to stay away. So curious it is. Moving on to tomorrow, I focused on 2 matches. We've got Stan Wawrinka versus Haden Khachanov. And in this match, I've gone with Wawrinka to win. I got him at 1.71. He looked impressive in dispatching, obviously, the struggling Grigor Dimitrov in straight sets, but he dominated on serve and he played shrewdly on return. He blocked back a lot of balls in play, was able to get ahead and dominate the rallies. And he'll face Haden Khachanov, who we talked a little bit about. He hasn't been able to put together a consistent year. He's made multiple racket changes, looked a bit lost out on court at parts of this season. So with the Russians' inconsistency and Stan playing pretty well at the moment, in a match of big ball strikers, I definitely like the Swiss to proceed there. And in the other match, we have Denis Shapovalov, I think you pronounce it, versus Dominic Thiem.
Yes.
And the home player here, home hope, Denis Shapovalov, he's been largely woeful the entire year, really. But Montreal may yet bring the best out of the young Canadian. Might be some Canadian magic sprinkled there. It was the scene of his breakthrough back in 2017, where he beat Juan Martín del Potro and Rafael Nadal en route to the semifinals as an 18-year-old here. He looked very poised under pressure and played extremely well, I would say, in his win over Herbert. He has some stunning winners and points played in that match that was really impressive to me. And as James has talked about, Thiem is definitely a player we want to oppose. He's very vulnerable here. The Austrian has yet to play on hard court this swing. He opted instead to play 2 clay court tournaments, finally lifting the Kitzbühel crown at home in Austria, which he has long been searching for. He has a bad record here in both Rogers Cup matches, both in Montreal and Toronto. He's never made it past round 2, and he now has to switch surfaces and continents on a short turnover to boot. So I definitely like the home hope here. I got him at 240. When he's confident, he should be a good matchup, and I think he prevails here.
Absolutely amazing stuff. I was watching the time 2 minutes, 3 minutes ago, and I said, what? It passed 1 hour already? And I was saying to Rafa from the studio, Rafa, please give us 3 minutes more because we need to wrap up this show. We have 1 hour for the show, but Rafa was very nice to give us 5 minutes more. We are closing another great edition of the Tennis Hour here at Sportsbet Daily. We covered both Rogers Cup on the WTA and on the ATP Tour, giving some great insights as usual. As usual, the boys are here with us week in and week out. Tomorrow we have UFC with Dave and Jason, and Craig is joining us for some golf bets because another tournament is starting on Thursday. And finally, on Thursday, Natalie will be back with the Premier League Panthers, with Flash and Martin, and huge surprises, and you will be thrilled to see what is going on, because we have a new design. So also us on our tennis show will be using that design starting next week. But first is the Premier League Panthers first edition here at Sportsbet Daily. Subscribe, like, and enjoy our free content. Great betting tips from the best tipsters, professional tipsters on the market with us. Thank you, James and Snize, for joining me today, and see you next week for another great edition of the Tennis Hour here at Sports Bet Daily. And thank you guys for watching us once again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Take care.
See you later.